At this time, we'll call to order the January 10th, 2023 regular meeting of Finance Personnel Committee. Angela, roll please.
Alderperson Perrot.
Here.
Gantz.
Here.
Chanday-Kundinger. Here. Quigley.
Here.
Mayor Boyd.
I am here. It appears we're all here. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the December 13th, 2022 regular meeting of the Finance Personnel Committee.
I move to approve.
A second.
Motion by Alderperson P-Rock, seconded by Alderperson Gantz. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, item 3, public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Finance Personnel Committee. Anyone in audience or virtually have any public comment upon matters not on the agenda? If so, just state your name. For the second time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda? And for the third and final time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda? It appears there are none. Item 4, Fire Department overtime and LifeQuest billing reports for December 2022. I'd move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson P-Rock. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action on the December 2022 police overtime report.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Quigley, seconded by Alderperson P-Rock. Any discussion? I'll just add one thing. I know the chief is probably out there someplace. Both fire and police overtime, not the best in the world, but is what it is. Police a little higher. Jeremy did a good job explaining it. So now that an officer is kind of online now, that'll help things a little bit.
Yeah, that is our hope. We have one that is currently on a light duty status, and then we have 2 that are in training that will hopefully be graduating from training in February.
Great. Very good. Thank you. Comments, questions? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, consideration and possible action on acceptance of $18,546 donation from Greater Green Bay Community Foundation to police for use with the K-9 unit.
I'll move to approve. A second.
Motion by Alderperson Cunninger, second by Alderperson Gantz. Any discussion? Where are we at right now, Chief, on the amount of money to be raised for the K-9 dog?
We believe that we are very close to actually being able to expand the K-9 unit because of this donation. It would be our hope that with a little bit more fundraising, we could purchase a second K-9 and then also still have enough in reserve to be able to replace Kurt at the time that he is due to retire, which could be anywhere from 1 to 2 years from now. So this donation would put us in a very, very good position.
Is there a competition between police and fire to get the dog first? Chief?
No, this money is actually from the donated also as part of the Bark and Blue Foundation. They have an ongoing donation, and it just so happens that this particular year it was DePere's turn. They tend to donate money through a rotation throughout Brown County to the different police agencies. And as luck would have it, this just happened to be DePere Police's turn.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Other comments and or questions? Did we vote on this yet? We do have a motion in a second, correct?
I think we did. Yep.
I just babbling on there. Sorry, everybody. That said, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, consideration and possible action for repair or reconstruction of the Interstate 41 sign. My computer's now out, but I assume this was either Bill or Dan doing this one, so who wants it?
It's me.
Dan! I'm going to close out of my stuff here. Go ahead.
So in short,
I'll be good.
the several alderpersons have and the public have asked us to take a look at our highway sign, the I-41 sign. Late last year, it started to have some issues. I should say, actually, probably in fall of last year, in regards to being burnt out. And so staff started to dive into the situation of just understanding what was wrong with it and what some of the repairs may be. But at the same time, we'd also request from some alders to look at updating it to our new branding standards. That was done under the old branding standards. And so what would it take to come into compliance with the new ones? So I'm going to try to share my screen here. That's what I was trying to do, but my computer made me download GoToMeeting all again. So hold on.
A new one.
I think it worked that time. So, in short, there's a very, very wide discrepancy in cost, I guess you would say. If we wish to stick with the existing sign, it'd be about a $14,000 to $15,000 repair. And that includes a lot of the mechanisms on the inside of that sign are very specific to that sign, a custom-made sign. If we wish to use the existing base of the sign, kind of the white pillar, and then do something different on top, whether or not it be complete with the branding, very specific with our logo, or maybe something more stylistic of it, the cost could range depending on how it's lit, how it's structured, and you see the cost range in there, which is approximately $165,000 to almost $230,000.
How many
So-
bedrooms and bathrooms will it have?
I know.
Right.
So you saw in the packet, there was kind of an example. That was something I put together. We did reach out to the original manufacturer of the sign for some of these estimates, and they actually did give us some designs. But until we have them under contract for actual design services, we didn't want to share them and kind of get things rolling out there. So with that, we're just looking for some direction. Is there the comfort level to move forward with that, or should we stick with the replacement? Where could some of that funding come from? Various different funding sources. It is adjacent to a tax increment district, so it could come in from TID number 15. It's possible. We would typically try to attach that to an actual development project, so we actually tie those expenses. But there are other funding sources as well at the city, obviously. Everyone's favorite, the unassigned reserves or ARPA fund or anything else. There's other things out there. We want to do a combination of those elements. But really, we're just looking for some direction before we go too far down one path and realize it's not what you like to do.
Okay, I'm going to go to Larry first, and then I'll take questions from y'all.
I think we talked about this, but I'm drawing a blank right now. If we go through Tony to do, if say if the finance committee and council wanted to do the higher cost option because it's over 25 grand, I'm assuming we have to bid it, or do we not have to because it's a refurbish?
My inkling or instinct is we probably would have to bid that.
Okay, that's what I'm assuming as well. So this price estimate's a price estimate,
Yep.
but it's not the price.
That's why we gave the big range
Okay.
in that area.
All right, questions or comments? Personally, I kind of would rather go with the new sign, but I'll hear from you all rather than repair it, which is broken anyways. But any comments? I know this is just kind of thrown at you guys. What do you think? Alderperson Quigley?
Yeah, I'm curious, and I don't know if Dan knows, I think the current sign has been in service since 2016. Do we know how much we paid at that time for it?
This would be more than what we paid for it originally. It was about 200 or 100
A
and
little over 100,000.
yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm really concerned with the second option, that if we paid that much and got only 6 years out of service out of it, that I would lean towards the smaller figure, but also curious to find out what some other people are thinking.
Very good. Questions, comments? Alderperson P-Rock,
I'm leaning towards just fix it also.
just fixing it?
Yeah.
Which would be
I mean, the sign's not terrible.
option A,
That
you're
money
leaning
can be
that
used
way?
other places. Yeah, option A.
I would,
Alderperson Conacher?
I would like to see it rolled into a budget item or, because it doesn't have to, it's currently just with the lights out. It's not that it's, I do very much appreciate the idea of using the pillar foundation because that's a substantial part of the cost. And I like the simplicity of having something that changes out with colors and things like that. But I don't see this as being, to both comments already raised, I don't see this as being an immediacy. I could even see not doing the lights for a while. Like I don't feel like fire
We should just put different color lights in it.
on this one.
There is one other option that potentially we didn't discuss here, which is right now that it's halo lit. We don't know what it would look like if it was ground lit from there. So there's opportunities there as well. We'd have to work with the neighboring property owner because I'm pretty sure this tiny square that we have where that light or that sign is located probably wouldn't be far enough to actually place them. So we may have to work, we would have to work with the, you know, the adjoining property owner, and they've been pretty good to work with. That's United Health Group, or we actually own the conservancy space to the north. So maybe an opportunity to go do a test run with a, you know, kind of a rental equipment, something like that. There's other options if we wanted to keep it and go the really, really lower budget option, I guess you would say, with, you know, retrofitting ground lighting.
What do you guys think of that option?
I like that.
I do too.
You can try it.
Just
I'd
try
like
it to see what it looks like.
So I can just lighten it from
Yeah.
the ground up.
Yeah, ground up to the sign like you would typically for any monument sign. It's kind of a tall sign, so it may not work, but it was one thing that we discussed as staff.
Larry?
Yeah, I mean, if we go that option, we would also most likely try to come up with a way to mount some lighting on top that could potentially cast down as well at the same time. I don't know if that would work, but that's something we'd probably have to consider with the size of the sign. Because I agree, I think with the shape of the sign, the configuration, it's gonna be really hard to light from the ground. Because
get everything.
It's gonna create shadows and
Or
things
bat
that you're
signal.
not gonna see parts of it because of the in and out with the plastic and the framing, I think.
So is it Alderperson Gantz?
As much as I would love to have a new one, I think it's a little pricey, so I would like to work with what we have, because I don't see it as a necessity, but I would like to see some other options if possible.
Do you have one else to-
Larry has one other thing to say. Thank you very much to Alderperson Gantz.
You're welcome.
We can, if you want us to, bid it and see what the prices actually come in as from other companies as well, and then make a decision which way you want to go. Because we can always just go with the repairs, it's less than 25,000, we don't need to bid it. And we can always reject the bids, the city has the ability to do that, if you don't want to go with it. So if a bid came in substantially lower than what Jones Sign is giving a quote for, the original contractor, you may decide you want to go in a different direction. I'm just saying, you don't lose anything by doing that. In the interim, we can do potentially something with ground lighting if we wanted to, but I'm just saying you don't lose anything by actually going out with a bid process.
Well, then, if there's no urgency, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
That way we've explored all
Yeah.
options.
I
And maybe
say-
there's a different number out there we're just not aware of. I
I
like that.
agree. Yeah, get as many options and
Alderperson Cunningham.
The history
do
of
some more work and then let us.
the history of the
kidding.
original side, are we surprised at all? Like the idea that it's too complicated to fix, that's surprising to me. Like,
It's completely custom sign. So all the wiring on the inside is all custom. Everything is custom on the inside. How it's structured, how it's lit, it definitely isn't an out-of-the-box thing. So that's the reason why there's some conflict. I would assume there's probably some significant. You're not just replacing what's burnt out. You're probably really replacing boards and other things that are all involved in that.
So is it surprising? I guess maybe a little bit,
it
but
just doesn't seem like that's a very.
so you'd think it'd go longer, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Or be fixable.
For some
Or be
Yeah, I
fixable.
understand
Right out,
components
yeah.
might burn
Yeah. Well, here we are.
out. Right, right.
So what do we do?
So is everyone okay then if we go forward that way? They have direction that, you know, get the bids. Otherwise, try to do a little patchwork or that outside lighting on it and then come back. And if it's under 25 and the bids are too high, we're not going to go for it anyway. So will it come back, the bids, at least so they can see them? I'm assuming so, yes? Yes. Okay.
The only challenge I caution is if we get too far into design, I'd like to keep it a little not designed by committee. I'd like to come back with a recommendation from a working group of internal with some design schemes so that we're not shooting, we don't bring it soup to nuts back. We have an actual kind of consistent plan for a bid across all people responding.
Larry, and I'm okay with that, Larry.
The other option, though, and I think this might be a preferred option, is to give general parameters in the bid document and allow them to build into the price of the bid, the design work and everything, so you're not actually going down that path. Because what you essentially got now is back of the napkin type design from the local company, and you may get something very different proposed that is more appealing as well. So, I mean, I would suggest that we don't sit
Yeah, I
down
just
and
don't want to
spend
come
money
here
on
and
some
the
of
next
this
time we
stuff.
come here, you're expecting designs or
Yeah, no.
like that because we wouldn't have that unless it's part of the bid.
Well, and also at some point we redesign the label, all the logos and stuff like that. So anything that, in my opinion, is more evergreen and can stay without, even if it's just the writing of the font, so that there is some kind of slight tie. I love the idea of having impactful backlighting, though, like, or,
Yeah,
uplighting.
I like that a lot too, yeah, where you could change that out. But if it's too expensive, it's too expensive. So are we okay with the direction, and Dan, are you okay with the direction that you've received?
Mm-hmm.
Good? Everyone good?
Good.
All right. Up next, my computer's back on, yay. Item 8, consideration and possible action for an amendment to the agreement with Cedar Corporation for Phase 2 environmental assessment for the South 100 block of Broadway, Perrot Square parking structure, and that would be Dan.
So the item in front of you here is to specifically for the phase 2 of the parking structure, and this was started in 2019 through our previous city attorney. We sent about $25,000 so far in phase 2 environmental assessments, and the DNR is continually asking for more. Part of that is some of our samplings were done so that we could eliminate some of our groundwater contamination samples and make sure that is out of our scope anymore. And now we're strictly just into the volatile compounds. And so this next phase of study is requested so that we can sort of limit the area of impact. And the reason for that is if you can limit the area of impact to what the DNR agrees with, it's less you have to potentially landfill or do other sources with. So in other words, you're more or less trading off the test samplings and the soil samplings so that you have to do less soil remediation on the back end. So that's what's being proposed here. Cedar Corp in their packet is now proposing to 11 additional soil borings, converting 2 of the previous monitoring wells to additional soil borings, converting 7 to permanent monitoring wells, and a variety of other things to comply with the requirements that the DNR has suggested. Overall, at the end of this, in about 6 months, we should have a report that the DNR can then either tell us you either can do continuing obligations, you can hold off for development, but we more or less will have a plan of attack. So when it comes to redeveloping that block, we'll know what our area of impact will be. So it's a kind of a large, costly project, but that's just the kind of extent of environmental assessments at this point.
Thank you. Questions or comments? And/or motion. I'll make a motion if there are questions after that. That's fine. I'll make a motion to approve the amendment with Cedar Corporation for Phase 2.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Perrot. Any discussion or comments? Seeing there is none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, consideration and possible action for a professional services agreement with MSA for WEDC, Community Development Investment, CDI Grant Application Management and Reporting Services. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. This grant application and monitoring services is broken out into 2 pieces and scopes. Specifically, in 2021, the city received a CDI grant in which we, as staff, applied for. And now it's kind of coming due. The project is finished, and now there's opportunities for reporting. We have MSA as our grant consultant who specializes in these items and have an opportunity to utilize their expertise to finalize the project. In addition to that, it sort of frees up our staff time to doing accounting from somebody else's accounting. So we're proposing here to use TID 9 funds for the wrap-up of the CDI for Cobblestone Hotel grant reporting. And then also tasks 2 and 3 would be the application for a pending Shopko redevelopment site. So over the next year, we anticipate that we will receive a redevelopment proposal for the former Shopko redevelopment site. We want to be ready to go with a grant application, and so as such, MSA would be available following approval of this contract to complete that application. Very competitive application process, and so their fiscal year runs from July 1 through the next year. So we most likely would actually put an application in for the calendar year 2023, which starts in July. And the reason for that is we would get in right at the start of the time frame. So we're more or less setting the table so that we're ready to go and be at the front of the line for the next funding cycle, because it is very competitive. And this year, they weren't even awarding maximum grant amounts. They were trying to spread out as far as they can. So by getting in as soon as possible, we have an opportunity to receive a full grant amount. And the application, the monitoring portion of it would not be awarded or done unless it was received. So in this case, you see the closeout currently so far is the 2100 The application is the 8,400, and then the CDI administration for the next grant would be 4,200, and that includes closeout at that point. So at this time, I actually did receive right before we got here a revised scope for those tests, 200 and 300. So I will share that with Tony for greater detail, but we do have a full scope here now.
Thank you. Questions or comments anyone have?
I move to approve.
A lot of information.
Yeah. I'll second.
All right, motion by Alderperson Conacher, seconded by Alderperson Perrot. Any additional discussion or comments regarding the professional services agreement for CDI grant? All right, seeing there is none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10, discussion regarding the use of the affordable housing funding from the extension of TID number 6. Dan, this should be a good one.
All right, strap in. Here we go.
Here we go. This is the one we're here for.
I'll go through this in kind of high-level detail here because I did include a kind of a one-page summary. My goal for tonight was to prepare a kind of loose set of programs for you to review. With the affordable housing program funds from the state, when you terminate a TID, it's very loose requirements that all you have to do is comply with the 75% rule of providing affordable housing for your community. What that means can be defined as how you define it. There are some, I guess you would say, given parameters that are sort of common out there, but the state doesn't have truly defined parameters. So you can kind of take the program and kind of craft it how you see best for your community. So in your packet tonight, I have 7 different uses of the funds. One, which would be a housing action plan, part funding from a housing action plan, but then 6 example programs. They're not in any order. They're just kind of there, and I'll kind of walk through them. But the goal is to kind of get a feel for where the comfort level is. I didn't want to spend a time crafting all these programs just to find out that the committee only had a comfort level for 1 or 2 of them. So I did just kind of do the high level. And so I'll go through them very quickly. It'll be the Affordable Housing Stock Improvement Loan Program, Down Payment Assistance Program, a Rock the Block program by Habitat for Humanity, a Upper Story Activation in our downtown program, a Affordable Lot Purchase Program, and affordable housing in multifamily TIF developments. So I'll kind of go through them. Let me switch to a different sheet here. It's a little hard to see now, isn't it?
If you don't share your screen and you just go off of what's on
Yeah, I
the other
think
part, it'll come in better off the agenda packet.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm going to stop that.
Do you guys like your TV up there, by the way? Alders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
It's
do.
awesome. Yeah, make sure. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
There we go.
If you just do the index again on
Oh,
the
John,
side,
you're
you can go
starting.
to
Can you
it.
see that? You can see that.
I'm close enough already.
Make them bigger.
Yeah, we need it bigger. Devin can't see. He's old.
That's right. We'll take it. We'll take the whole thing away tomorrow. That's all I needed here.
All right. So the first item I have there is we budgeted in the 2020 or 2022 budget for a housing action strategy. We budgeted $40,000 for that one. We decided to kind of hold off on that one until we actually finished the zoning code because that was heavy enough of a lift by itself and try to take on multiple kind of long-range planning pieces. We'd like to, Joe, roll over that $40,000 to this first quarter so that we can issue that RFP. But however, in conversations with several consulting firms out there, $40,000 is probably a little bit light for our targeted goals of what that housing action plan would be. And that would be not just addressing affordable housing in the community, but it's addressing housing just in general. So we're proposing to add about $10,000 to that one so we kind of get a more rounded proposal. So that's the first kind of discussion point. I'd like to include that as part of our discussion. These next 6 are kind of up in the air. So this first one here is the Affordable Housing Stock Improvement Program. And this was discussed before my time here. It was kind of discussed what can we do to kind of make sure that our older housing stock in our near downtown neighborhoods are maintained and they kind of maintain that character that's been there. I think we're very fortunate that they've been pretty well maintained, but that may not always be the case as we get an older generations kind of working their way through. So with that one, this program would be a loan program that would be available for individuals of certain price points or certain income levels, and as well as price points from a home. We don't want people with a $500,000 home asking for funds for housing affordability at a housing stock improvement program. So as it's loosely drafted would be for individuals making up to a certain percent of the county median income, and the home that would be at either 100 to 110, 120% of RSS value. So that way we're kind of targeting very specific areas, and we're not having to draw boundary lines on maps at that point. We're able to use the assessed value of our own properties to figure out if a property is eligible. So that's kind of the first program. There's affordable, or the funding sources. We could look at, again, the housing program. We could look at private match donations, and I did put this one in for the future ARPA discussion as well to kind of help package an item. So you'll see that later this month.
Any questions on the first, any
You
questions?
want me to go through them all? Do you want me to talk about them first?
How do you guys want to do it? That's the first option. You okay right now, or Alderperson Quigley?
Yeah, I just think from a sort of a high-level overview, I think just keep plowing ahead, and then I'm not sure what questions to ask at this point.
Okay, very good. If so, just
Yeah,
raise your
sure.
hand and we'll go. All right.
And I've actually implemented this program throughout the state, actually, a few different communities all over the state in my past life. So I have a very good comfort level with a program of this nature. So the Deeper Roots Down Payment Assistance Program, this one's a little bit more of a targeted effort to cooperate with our businesses who are trying to recruit individuals. So the down payment assistance program would be that of a grant that would be kind of structured in a forgivable loan, 20% over 5 years, 20% every year over 5 years, payable back if you were to leave the home before that time. The interesting part about this one, though, is sort of in these older housing stocks, those oftentimes are individuals, or you're competing with individuals who are looking at purchasing them for rentals or flippers or anybody else. And so anybody who's looking to reside in these homes oftentimes is competing with those individuals who see this as an income stream. So while this may work, you're in essence almost seed funding the seller to that aspect with that down payment assistance. But the benefit is you're getting somebody who is qualified as a individual of, again, the county median income into a home. So there's kind of trade-offs in that one. This one's structured as a forgivable loan. We could target private corporate donations, meaning that if a company is willing to seed fund the program, that their employees could be eligible for a match from their own side. And therefore, they're kind of leveraging themselves to get employees to stay longer as well. So a forgivable loan program. Moving on, we have the upper story activation. That's exactly what it sounds like in our downtown. This one, we don't have quite as many upper story units anymore, as we've had fires and voluntary demolitions and a variety of other things. But a possible funding source would be to bring back some of those upper stories and help renovate some of those back to status so that they can be in our downtown as affordable units in our downtown, working in the various different service businesses or office businesses. Important point to note about this one, much like what we'll talk about with the other TIF development, you probably have to structure it in a way in which you're capitalizing that lost rent, because we would want to keep it at affordability purposes. So we'd have to find that balance point of what is somebody willing to take on for lost rent and keeping something at a reduced rental rate for a certain period of time and what that certain period of time is. We don't have that ironed out yet, but this is a possible program to help activate those upper story units. If you're in a downtown, you could also just use regular TIF funds to do this as well. So this could be done for affordability purposes or regular TIF funds. Rock the Block program. We were approached by Habitat for Humanity, in addition to our neighbor to the north, Green Bay, as an opportunity for a program that's been launched nationwide, but every Habitat for Humanity is sort of taking it on a little bit differently. As proposed, they had requested to work with the municipality to identify a block or a segment of blocks inside of a community in certain areas, and to really kind of make a sizable impact in a very short amount of time. And so in this point, they would request a dollar amount from the city, and I believe we probably ask again for corporate match donations so that we have a little bit more flexibility in that one. But their target would be about 20 to 30 projects in a 2 to 3 block radius stretch or more, which they would hire somebody on their staff, would go out and organize all those projects, sign up people for those loans, and use that as their opportunity to really make an impact into a region. Again, they're sort of trying to find an area or neighborhood to work in. If we do go this route, I probably suggest that we do it on both sides of the river so that we're being equal amongst all. It would be done on a individual basis, meaning one project in 1 year and then one project another year, just because of just the amount of time, effort, and resource that goes into a project of this nature. The cool part about this one for us is it's turnkey. we don't have the staff or horsepower to go out and organize these things, but they do. So they would organize, manage, and finalize the entire project for us once we would make that allocation.
Dan, how would this be different? I went to a Habitat finish on the west side by one of the schools. I can't remember exactly where it was. So is this kind of the same thing, or is it?
No,
fairly
no.
different?
This is it's more or less a housing stock improvement program, but they're picking 20, 30 different homes in a block radius and saying, do you need a new roof? Do you need new windows? Do you need new siding?
Oh.
And they will then go
do all
out
that.
and find the loans for that individual, work through their financing, work through their pieces, and they'll organize the volunteers. They'll organize all the T-shirts, the awards, all those thank yous. They do all of that. And it's to make a sizable impact in a very short amount of time frame.
Yeah,
and see that.
Yeah, it really is pretty cool. Do the houses have to meet like a certain criteria as far
That's
as?
part of their
job to
criteria.
find that income.
We could help define some of that, but we could say we'd like to have you stick within a certain target region. You'll see it on there. The eligibility is based on income guidelines and proof of home ownership, and then the cost of repairs would be secured by a 0% interest deferred loan or paid in full up front if they wanted to do so. That way they're just not doing the work. Somebody's organizing that whole process for them, more or less. And so there's multiple ways to go about it.
Great, thank you. Alderperson Quigley.
Yeah, with this one, it says that Habitat works with only one community. So is this, if Green Bay says yes, are we out in the cold or?
For 1 year. They'd like to
Okay.
they'd like to replicate this, but it takes a lot of time and effort and resources, and
I
they
can
only
imagine,
have one
yeah.
person doing this, so it's going to be one community a year.
Okay.
So it may be a race to get there first if we choose want to do it. I know Green Bay is currently looking at neighborhoods as well.
It's an impressive group. I mean, when I went there and talked with them and had some conversations, yeah, they do a great job.
I've volunteered with them before building the house.
Sure. All right, thank you.
A lot purchase program. So one of the things in my conversation with Habitat for Humanity or NeighborWorks or any of these organizations that do great work is they struggle to find lots in communities. I actually had multiple developers this week even ask me, do we have any infill lots that the city owns? Well, we don't own, the RDA doesn't own property like it does in our neighboring communities. But in this case, there's an opportunity for us to potentially buy some lots and reserve them for affordability purposes. We could tie this into any number of mechanisms. If there's a TIF request by a developer, if there's a request to use our financial funding of the actual infrastructure, we can request use of a certain amount of lots or to buy them for a certain price point, and then we would more or less reduce our price to that nonprofit for their use. I know roughly their target for a lot that they can afford, and including to build the house and everything else, is about $20,000, which isn't going to get you very far in a new build in these days. So if we're trying to bring affordability directly into the neighborhoods, this could be a way to do it as well.
Do we have a lot of, we don't ourselves, but are there a lot of identifiable lots?
Well, in new
neighborhoods?
subdivisions, we would end up saying, hey, we would like to purchase X number of lots in a new subdivision, and then we would then use it as a
Sure,
reduced sale to the organization.
I like that too.
And then I believe the last one is affordable housing and multifamily TIF developments. So we can ask in a multifamily development, if somebody requests us to use TIF funding to make a project work, we can formally make a request to have affordable units brought into that one. There is a bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to that one. You're having to make up the lost revenue of a market rate to an affordable unit, and the challenge with that one is because banks typically will not finance a affordable housing project unless you have either Section 42 funding from WEDC or somebody else to help make up what that market rate gap would be. There is some wiggle room in that one, but it is a bit of a challenge. The other double-edged sword to that one is the assessed value of a project that has affordable units in it is reduced from a full market rate project. So you would be giving TIF funds away to a developer in some sort of grant, but then you're also getting less annual taxes back to pay that off. And so to help potentially seed fund that, you could also use TIF funds to kind of bridge that gap on a project in your downtown as well. You could also use affordable housing and multifamily projects to actually, be a lead developer in our own project. So if we wanted to be a lead developer in a downtown site to bring affordability in, and we want to be the lead developer, be a turnkey to somebody else after we get what we want, we could also do that as well, and then use any profits or anything else to do it again. So there's opportunities there from the city to undertake that aspect as well. So there's a number of different ways that you could take that one, but in either case, I would say you would loosely tie yourself to WEDA Section 42 guidelines because it's already a preset program. Developers who do affordability housing programs, they know how to follow it, they know what to do. Then you would monitor with WEDA, contract with WEDA for monitoring. So there's your soup to nuts. What you can't do, what you'd like to do. It's,
And this is kind of just as a discussion only type.
It's a
We're not
discussion
gonna
only.
Finish anything
No.
right now.
And I didn't want to, as I mentioned, I didn't want to go out and draft all these programs to have you say, we like 2 of them, and then I spent all that time drafting.
Can you do an a la carte approach? Can you pick and choose a couple of?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious as we go forward.
I know
here.
there was the preference when this first was discussed several years ago for the housing stock improvement program. That way it spreads out the into our neighborhoods, into the people who have been residents for years and who have seen the TIDs grow. It kind of gives sort of back to that, to that part of our community. I know there was that push at that time, but what I've laid out in front of you here is a variety of other programs as well.
Great. Questions, comments? Alderperson Cuniger.
Are we trying to have a decision of, I like.
No.
No, not at all. Really just kind of banter back and
Great.
forth and
You can tell yet again, what is this, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row, an extraordinary amount of work, and very well thought out and easy for us to consume. It's an extraordinary amount of work. Thank you.
We have $1.9 million, so if we go after everything, you may be spreading, a little bit too thin to make an impact. That's a discussion point that I'd like to have tonight.
And I wonder if that needs to come out with your housing stock. You want to kind of get a comprehensive view of the city. I look at it as if you have $1.9 million, you want to have a lot of different tools, or at least several of these programs so that you can use them most effectively. I do have one question. I want to circle back to that first one, the affordable housing stock.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a home that's in an older neighborhood and somebody wants to fix it up at I believe it's a 0% interest loan, is that right?
Yep.
But then if they fix up that home and then sell it to somebody else, I don't know how that's making for affordable housing. That the person that's selling the home is going to sell it at whatever the new market value is. That correct?
And that may be the case, but we would be repaid back the loan, and then it could get back into somebody who's in a lower in that threshold. So let's say they did improve the home, and it's when I first wrote this about a year and a half ago, I just did a snapshot analysis. $230,000 was 120% of our average assessed value. We know that's increased over the past year.
Sure.
We just don't have that yet. So let's say somebody is under that threshold, they do the improvements, and it sells at 260. They'll repay back that 0 interest loan, and then we can use those funds to get to on somebody else to help work with somebody else. So if they do sell, yes, somebody sold to somebody who's no longer in that housing affordability, but at least we helped improve the housing stock at that same time. Okay. So there's a positive and like I said, a positive.
Right. Okay.
Larry, you have more to add to that?
The other point is, when we originally talked about this, I don't know, half a dozen or so years ago, with this particular program, one of the problems we have, the county also has a loan program that's 0%, I believe, interest.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, you don't have to pay it until you sell the house. They have the income limits that are set and everything else. The difference with their program is, though, that they come in and they require you to replace the roof, the siding, and the windows all at once. You don't get to a la carte it. And so we had a number of property owners in the near downtown area with homes that needed something done, that either didn't meet their stringent income levels but still couldn't afford to do it themselves, or they didn't want to replace everything.
Right.
They just wanted to do the roof, or they just wanted to do the siding, or whatever. And so in order to keep those houses from going into further disrepair and get to the point that at some point maybe they're not even going to be salvageable or make the neighborhood kind of look blighted, we had talked about this program back at that time. So the county does have a program. that would complement this, but again, that's more encompassing and lower income probably than what you would want to apply for it if you do it here.
Does the county replicate any of the other programs that maybe we can throw
No,
out?
so that program is funded through the CDBG program, through the state. And the reason why, I think, as I had conversations with the county, the reason why they were asking for people to lump those in is because it's a competitive program. So instead of having a lot of smaller projects, they were trying to, again, make the most impact in some of these properties. And so those loans, as put out by the county, can be up to 30 years plus if you've been in that home for that long. And so when you do that, you sort of divvy up those pool for a long period of time. So, this is the only program that Brown County has. They don't have this because the counties don't have the tax increment financing availability to them.
So they have this program, but not the other ones that he's
Yeah,
described.
they just have their own. So the housing program is the housing rehabilitation and down payment assistance program. So they can do two things with their money, which is, again, the housing improvement and down payment assistance.
Okay. I guess I have one more
A
question.
lot more red tape.
Yeah.
As well.
Another question is, because our staff's limited and stuff, which of these would be better for you as a staff as far as managing or overseeing, where it wouldn't involve a lot of your time and your staff's time? You must have some horse
Well,
you've picked
the
in
Rock
this race.
Rock the Block program would be turnkey for us.
Okay.
I would actually encourage the city to, as part of our activities committee, to actually participate in that work, which
Sure.
would be a great opportunity for us. But from a staff perspective, that's I'm not saying I don't want to have more work to do, but that would be the turnkey one.
That's really good to hear. I mean, I want to hear that. Yeah.
Weren't you just planning finance to do all of it?
The hardest one would
George's hands retirement.
hardest ones are loan programs. It does require a lot of tracking.
I'm sorry, which one? I apologize.
Loan programs.
Okay.
Whether or not, if we do any grant programs, I don't recommend grants as flat out grants. I recommend them as forgivable loans just because it puts them at some skin in the game still. We don't want to see people with
Just
a
give
down
the money and then who knows what's going to happen.
one year in and they sell again and they benefited from it. So those do require time, effort, and resources by all of our departments here drafting all those agreements. And so those do take effort and time and tracking. And so I think as you set up your systems and you work your way through it, it gets a lot easier. I think we've had a baptism by fire when it came to our loan program when it came for COVID and all the loans that we did there. So I think our staff is well versed and be able to turn those around pretty quickly. But I think the loan programs are going to be the most challenging.
Now, Habitat would require no real work on your end. It's just take this and go, and we know what that product is and how they work. Larry?
Yeah, the one other thing you might want to think of as you're trying to figure out, well, which one of these programs do you want to recommend going forward with at some point to the council, is what is the interest that you have for the community? Are you more interested in getting people into apartments, like the loft style ones or the buildings and that type of thing? Are you more interested in promoting new home ownership versus fixing up current homes that are owned by people? So that might be one way to think about it. Where do you want to emphasize more of the money to go? Because as Dan indicated, we probably can't really afford with the money we have to successfully do all the programs. So maybe a way to think about it is, where do you want to emphasize money for what type of end result? Apartment dwelling, fixing up the upstairs of downtown buildings, new home ownership, fixing up existing homes. I know they're all great and you want to do them all, but, emphasizing something might give you
Have a
direction
strategy.
on where you want to go with which programs.
I told Larry I can do the forced weighted matrix model. If we don't have a discussion here and it doesn't go anywhere, I can facilitate a very finite way to figure out an answer here.
I'm trying to be nice.
You lost me on all that right there. So it might be a dumb question, but Housing Authority would really have no input on this or any insight they could offer?
So the Housing Authority is completely funded through the
federal?
HUD, and so they don't have a role. And every time I've tried to incorporate in programs here, I'm not saying De Pere would be any different, their resources and their co-op agreements that they have with HUD really doesn't allow them to participate unless we actually staff them with additional resources as well, so salaries and everything else. So it's the reason why we haven't brought them into this one is because of just where they have to comply with federal requirements. They start doing work outside of their agreements to do the work that they're supposed to do. They run into issues, and
Yeah,
I ran into that in several communities in the past. So that's the reason why.
I mean, I just brought it up because someone could see out there that we have a housing authority, then why aren't they involved in the discussion? So that's a very good answer. Questions, comments, direction? You have an answer? You all ready? Should we just throw one out there or what?
I could think about it and come back again.
So I guess the best thing is now that we have this information, maybe we'll hear from some of the constituents or someone that we know of. And what are you looking at? And I'm hoping someone grabs on this, media, whatever, and there might be some kind of story or whatever.
Well, it's going to be in your speech for the State of the City
Oh,
address.
that's right. Yes.
So
yes, I'm
maybe
very
we
excited
can
about
set
that.
it up as a community survey as well. If we truly want to get to that level.
That's
I know
not a
we don't-
bad thought.
We're,
Yeah, I like
we're
that.
pretty surveyed out as a community for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
But if people truly want to participate, we can set up where should the community
It's a
focus?
big
itself?
deal. I mean, it really
I
is.
kinda
Smooth
like
it right
that.
at Cedar to Pier.
Yeah. That's gonna be fun. They're
I got
gonna
a
love
question
I like
on
that.
on the senior housing, like the one that's across from Julie's Cafe, you know that thing?
Yep.
I think we need more of that in the city. I know a lot of people are on waiting lists for years for that.
Well, we do have something in the works right now for
Well,
senior facility.
senior housing,
For
I think
Oak
we-
Meadows is
like
one.
downtown.
affordability.
Well, downtown, yes. So right
Oh.
now, last year, Oak Meadows was the former assisted living facility on 10th Street, or on 10th and Cedar.
Oh yeah, yep,
Yeah.
down by the day spa.
Yep, by the day spa. That one is open. It received its occupancy. So that was a combination of WEDA Section 42 funding. That was also a combination of the state allocating $1.5 million of special funds to the city of De Pere to transfer over to that project as well. So we added 60 units of affordability in our community for seniors. When you get into the downtown, again, it comes down to where do the funding sources come from. If you can find a developer who's savvy enough in that world and can make it work and has, they work with the same investors who understand that work, asking somebody who's just a multifamily developer to do it is hard to do because you need to know the funding programs in and out because of the requirements. So,
But to add, I mean, there's nothing in here on senior housing, so
no,
Yeah,
there's
that
nothing
was-
here.
that was
But
But
purposeful.
again, that's where that last program, which is affordability in multifamily projects, could be allocated to a senior housing project.
Convert Irwin School to senior housing.
You could.
Ooh,
Could.
There you go.
because you like the
What's
senior
that?
housing on the west side.
Yeah, I got a
on
lot of
Reed.
people I know that are getting out of their houses now and are trying to get in there.
Yeah,
More so than any other places.
it's good. It's good we have that there. I mean, honestly,
They like it because it's down there and they can walk
I
around.
believe it's got great vacancy. I think my dad was in there for. A
I
couple
will
years.
tell you, and it may seem a little odd that we're going to do a housing action strategy at the same time of doing this one, but pretty much I can tell you the reason why we're doing an action strategy and not just a housing study is Green Bay did a housing study about 2 years ago, and it was regional. It wasn't just for Green Bay, it was regional. And pretty much every type of unit, every type of structure came up as a need. So we understand that, and so as part of it, senior housing, multifamily housing, missing middle, which is, you talk about missing middle, it's the housing types, which is the townhomes, the duplexes, all those things are missing. And it's just where our economy is going at this point. It's hard. Every housing project is hard at this point. So you could structure that assistance to a developer in any structure way that you choose. Could be senior living, could be just regular affordable housing.
Is there a shortage of tiny houses too?
Well, yes,
can't- you
because
can't see
most
'em. They're so tiny.
most communities don't even allow it.
He was waiting for that for about 20 minutes. So.
Fair enough.
to ask the question about
Yeah,
tiny
and I
homes. he wouldn't do
literally,
it.
I said, no, you're not going to ask
It
that
was
question."
pulled from
So he
the zoning
decides I'm
code
just going to
rewrite
blurt it
before I
out.
got here.
Yeah.
So I don't take credit for that one. It was discussed in the original zoning code discussion in 2018 and 19, but it was pulled. Not allowed in the zoning code.
There was a news story, I can't find it right now, but the shortage of housing throughout Wisconsin. I just saw it today.
Yesterday.
You see the one I saw? The huge shortage.
Yeah, in the next 10 years, we are going to be vastly short. I think it's 200 and some odd thousand housing units a year.
Yeah. It was a large number. Is that what it was?
I think
And that's-
you mentioned the tiny homes, isn't that the backyard cottage?
We do have
Airbnbs?
we do have not Airbnbs, Larry. Don't
trying to
put
stir
out
these things
fake
up here a little bit, isn't
information
he?
there.
Yeah.
The backyard cottages aren't allowed to be used for Airbnbs.
We don't
You're
want
gonna get me in trouble with people.
I was gonna throw all those in there.
All right, so
They do make.
I do like the state up here. We'll talk about this survey, which another way to solicit response from residents.
Yeah, I like.
When would you see coming back here for another
Well,
deep
following
dive?
the results of, if we do prepare a survey in time
Okay.
for that, so it's ready to roll out, which it shouldn't take a lot of time. Just do a small small description of each program, and then have it sort of put out in a small survey. I'll have to discuss with our staff of how's best to structure those questions, and maybe a conversation to St. Norbert as well, just because it's important to how you structure a question. So I may do it, my gut feeling is telling me we'll structure it as a percentage question of how would you allocate your percentages if you had that decision making. And then I would bring it back here for that discussion, and then we would go from there.
Does it have to come back here? Could it go, now that we've discussed it here, could it go,
To the full body?
findings go right
You,
to?
you can have it go directly to the council if that's the preference of the committee and not bring it here. This was just kind of the landing pad to give us some direction
Yeah.
to refine it for the
You want
council.
more eyes and heads on
No, I
this?
just don't know that it needs to, like, it slows
To do
it
this.
down.
Well, the reason why I say we potentially bring it back here is, let's say we come back and there's 4 equal programs from the general public. Again, if I would bring it right back to the council, it would be for just a general discussion, because again, I wouldn't want to draft all those programs if the council didn't want to go through all of them. So I do still need a filter of some sort if there's not a blinding, majority
Clear favorite?
Be contingent
on a
on
couple
the
of those.
results.
That's fair enough. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
That's fine.
Alderperson quickly.
And is there another time consideration, the housing action plan, is there a way to use that information? Or is that just going to tell us we need all of every
The
type of
housing action plan isn't just to tell you how many units you need. We're going to look at our own internal processes. We're going to look at our processes from a planning standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, from a TIF standpoint.
Right.
What are we doing that isn't up with what other communities are doing? Where are we deficient in our processes? And then we'll also then take a look at what are best practices being done around the state and around the country. That's really what the action strategy is for. We know that, they will touch on a little bit of the deficiencies, but then we're going to take a look at some action strategies that are for just general housing. Yes, housing affordability is a portion of that one, but we have just general housing related concerns across the board.
Okay.
Larry?
I just want to add in on the survey part. We do not have any funding in the budget approved at this point to do anything that would be a statistically sound survey in the sense of what we did with the community one with St. Norbert College. That's going to cost, even on something like this, it'll be over $10,000 to do it. It would take probably 6 weeks to 12 weeks to get it completed, out, received, analyzed, all that stuff. So what we're really talking about, I'm assuming for a survey, is we're really just seeking information from the community that's not statistically sound or
Nope,
anything.
it wouldn't
It's
be.
just
The poll.
general
Just a poll.
information for guidance.
Facebook poll.
Similar to what you did for the pool study and a variety of other kind
Yep,
of
Okay.
all the parks.
those one-offs.
Fair enough. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, information
Yeah.
only, but.
Sure.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
putting this
Yeah,
all
this is
together
amazing.
for us too.
And guess what? I'll be back with economic development programs in about 2 months, so.
Oh, great.
So you're busy.
Any additional comments and/or discussion? Is everyone okay if we finish right here? Very good. Thank you. Thank you. That pushes us to 11, correct? Item 11, review and possible action on City of De Pere investments and cash detail report for November of 2022. Joe, I'm assuming you got a great, incredible report here on investment.
It's better.
Oh, well, better's good.
It's all good.
All right.
The page, there we go.
That's weird.
There you go.
Next page.
Next one. There you go.
All right. Investment report for November 30th. Total cash investments about 33 million, as you can see. Total cash was 3.1. At the end of last month, we were at about 3.6 million. City checking went down about 340,000. And health checking went down about 340,000. House checking went down about 140 to account for the difference in cash. And then in investments, went down roughly about $1 million, and essentially the bulk of that was in LGIP. We got shared revenues in of 1.2 million and interest of about $50,000 on LGIP. That interest rate is going up for us as the money market. And then we spent about 1.5 million on accounts payable and payroll. And we had a debt payment of about 816,000. So that was the difference in the investments. Investment totals 30 million roughly, for a total at the November 30th of $33.2 million. The interest and depreciation in this case is now at 238,000, so we moved another, I think it was about 80,000 in the good for that. And I did get a chance to talk to, or if I didn't get reports, to talk to the various people at the 4 different institutions we have money, and we'll have about another $100,000 appreciation in December. So that 238 number will go down to about 138. And again, remember, we still get our original principal when these investments come due and all the income streams. So things are picking up. We won't quite get back to that zero mark, but we're a lot closer than we were about 3 months ago on that market thing. And hopefully that kind of just takes care of itself in the first quarter of 2023.
That is good news.
Yep.
Yay.
Hopefully.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll take hopefully. And that's everything, correct, Joe?
Correct.
Thank you very much. I'll make a motion to place the investment report on file.
I'll second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Quigley. Any discussion on the Pure Investments and Cash Detail Report for November of 2022? Seeing there is none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 12, future agenda items. Anyone have a future agenda item for finance? All right. Larry?
Not an agenda item in the sense I'm asking for it. Just to clarify, there's been a request from a couple of alderpersons recently to evaluate other banking services. We've been with Associated for a long time. And so, Joe, you're bringing that back to finance in February or
Hopefully,
March?
probably not February, because with tax collection and everything yet. March would be the month I'm kind of going
Right.
for.
Just so everybody understands that's coming back and it'll come back to this committee then.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right. I would make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Gantz. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're officially adjourned.
Thank you.